This video is part 9 in a series that provides an overview of the National Folklore Archive Initiative, NFAI, and an introduction to the function and content of its Folklore Collections Database, the FCD. Video 9, Creating Object Records, Collections. In the previous video, we discussed the nature of object records and their use in the FCD. In this video, we'll be discussing how to create an object record for a collection. At this point, you will have created a record for your repository and created records for all the entities, individuals, organizations, and meetings associated with the collection you intend to enter into FCD. To recap, object is the term used in the FCD for the type of database records used to describe archival content. The 6 types of objects: collections, series, subseries, box, folder, and item represent different levels and aspects of archival description. In this video, we'll focus on creating a collection. We'll start by reviewing how a collection record looks to front-end users of the FCD. For the sake of an example, I'm going to choose a collection from the Vermont Folklife Center archive. Starting at the FCD homepage, I'm going to select the search box and type Steve Green. You can see that the pop-up below the search box displays Steve Green in 2 places, as a collection and as an entity. Since we're looking for the collection and not the record for Steve Green as an individual, I'm going to select Steve Green, VFC 2010-0010. The first piece of information in the object record lets us know what kind of object record this is, a collection, as well as providing the collection title, in this case, Steve Green Collection, VFC 2011-0010. Beneath this is the rest of the collection level information entered by the cataloger into FCD. Identifier, the associated repository, date, the summary, which here includes a scope and content description, the names of the collection creator, extent, languages, subjects, including topical subjects, for example, country dancing New England, and the geographic coverage and other information. As you'll see when we go to create a sample collection record, there are more data fields available than are displayed here. Any field left empty on the cataloging side will not display on the user side. Below the collection record proper is a list of all the other related objects in the FCD that make up the collection. You can see the display of all the item titles, and on the right, the object type of each listing. As you can see, in this case there are no series, just items. Next, we'll take a quick look at a collection record that includes series so you see how those display. Here at the top part of the record, you can see the same basic fields that appear in the collection record we just looked at, just filled in with different data. Below the collection record proper is a list of all the related objects, series, and items in FCD that make up this collection. Looking at the object type field on the right, you can see both series and item. Looking to the title field on the left, you can see the series titles, and then under them and slightly indented, the item titles. This just provides a visual reference to the way series and items relate to each other. Items are part of series. Next, we're going to go through the steps of creating a new collection record using the FCD cataloging interface. First, log into the cataloging interface using your username and password. From the cataloging interface homepage, click on the New menu and select Object. You'll notice the only option here is Collection. This is the data entry form for an object. Looking over at the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the 6 components to an object record. Basic info, subject, notes and access, relationships, media, and summary. You must enter the relevant data into each form and save it before you're able to move on to the next form. Not every form will necessarily need to be filled out for each object. However, at minimum, you will need to fill in the basic info as completely as possible. So prior to this point, I created my repository record and records for all the entities, individuals, organizations, and meetings associated with the collection. I've got my collection description materials right here next to me, and I'm going to start filling in the data fields. For the sake of this example, I'm manually typing into each field, but you can also cut and paste text into the field if that's how you'd like to work. I'm going to start by filling in info for a fictitious collection, beginning with the basic info form. If you look at the location and hierarchy, it says New Collection. The NFAI identifier is automatically assigned. Local identifier, the unique identifier used by the repository for the collection. This field links to the repositories entered into the FCD. Since we've already created our repository record, it's in the system. Start by typing the name of the repository, or even part of the name, and the drop-down menu will appear below. I'm going to enter the name of the repository we're using for this example, Miskatonic University Library Special Collections. Title, the name of the collection, what it's called by the repository. The name of the collection we're creating is the Dr. Albert Wilmarth Vermont Field Collection. Alternate title field. You can see there's several different types of alternate titles. Date. The dates related to the creation of the collection. Based on the drop-down next to the data field, there are several types of dates one can create. And you can create more than one date for a collection. We're going to stick with the simple inclusive dates option and enter a date range for the creation of the materials in the collection. The summary is a brief description of the content of the collection. Manuscripts and photographs and audio recordings relating to Professor Albert Wilmarth's folklore research trip to Townsend, Vermont and the surrounding region in 1928. Creator and contributor. This field links to the entities in the FCD. And since we've already created the entity record for Albert Wilmarth, it should appear here. Wilmarth Albert. Extent refers to the physical quantity of the materials in the collection. We'll use archival units here. And we'll say this collection is 2 boxes. Finding aid URL, if there were an online finding aid, we'd put in the URL here. Access relates to access on the front end of the FCD to users searching the system. And status, we'll just leave that be. Now we're going to move on to the subject data screen. The first field here is the subject field itself. Most repositories will use subject terms associated with one of a number of controlled vocabularies. These terms will have been selected by catalogers as descriptive of the intellectual content of the collection. In this field, you'll enter your subject term and select the source, the controlled vocabulary, from which the term was drawn. In FCD, there are 4 options. Art and Architecture Thesaurus, Ethnographic Thesaurus, Library of Congress subject headings, and local. A local term is a non-controlled term or a term not selected from any of the three controlled vocabularies. So I'm just going to enter some subject terms, 2 drawn from the Library of Congress subject headings, and 3 drawn from the Ethnographic Thesaurus. Temporal coverage is a field you won't necessarily use. It relates to the period of time covered by the content of the collection. A collection that was created in 2004, which would have 2004 as a date reference in the basic info section, might consist of interviews with veterans of World War II talking about their service in Italy, for example. So here you would enter the range of years covered by the content. Geographic coverage is a similar field. It relates to places of significance mentioned in the content of the collection. Like subjects, there are controlled vocabularies for geographic names, so you select a source for any place names here too. Available sources here include the GeoNames database, the Getty Thesaurus of Geographic Names, the MARC code list for geographic areas, and local, for use with place names not found in or not drawn from a controlled vocabulary. I'm going to enter some places associated with the content of the collection, using the source names as derived from the Getty Thesaurus of Geographic Names. The georeference field allows you to fix places on a map. It draws on Google Maps and can provide precise geographic coordinates. Personal names. On the basic info page, we use the personal names field to identify the creator of the collection. Here on the subject form, we'll use it to identify individuals or organizations that are the subject of a particular collection. This field draws on entities already entered into the system. Keeping with the theme of my sample collection, I'll enter the name of fictitious Vermont folklorist Dr. Henry Akeley. Then I'll save this form and move on to the next form, Notes and Access. The Notes and Access data form is where you can enter additional details on your collection using standard notes formats identified in DAX, describing archives, a content standard, such as scope and content, bibliography, etc. I'm going to enter a scope and content note that relates to the sample collection I'm entering, and I'm going to paste it in just to save time. In addition, here you can enter a repository's preferred citation format for the collection and any relevant external URLs. The relationship datasheet is where the already established relationships between entities and repositories display. You can add more here too if there are other relationships you want to establish between this collection and other materials in the FCD or other entities and repositories. The media datasheet is used to upload a single digital image to represent the collection visually in the database. Any image, including document scans or photographs that can represent the content of the collection, can be used. Here I'm going to upload a scan of one of Professor Wilmarth's sketches of a legendary monster he encountered on this trip. Save it and move on to Summary, a simple text summary of the record that is generated by the FCD. Finally, Log, a running log of all the actions taken with the record. So that's the basics of creating a collection level record in FCD. Let's see how the record we've created looks on the front end of the system. Okay, so we're going to search for it here. You can see it there under Collections. And there is the front-end collection level record. At this point in time, project partners are only required to enter records at the collection level. If you want to describe your collections in greater detail, you're absolutely welcome to. And in the next 2 videos, we'll go over the basics of entering and describing series, subseries, box, folder, and item level information in FCD.